Over the last several months, most organizations, if not all, have had to respond to a larger percentage of remote working. But now the topic is really more one of the new norm. What does this future blended workplace look like? And where will technology play an increasing part, not only now in driving an intuitive and great user experience for staff and customers, but also some of the compliance considerations and social distancing and shift working requirements, now all areas where technology has an increasing part to play. So the question is, what is this new norm and how can technology help? I'm really excited to hand over to Vanessa from Cisco, and Vanessa is going to talk to us about some of the technology innovation coming now to actually address some of these requirements of this blended workplace, and also talk to us about some new innovative things that are coming that sound exciting but a little bit scary at the same time. So I'll hand over to Vanessa. Morning.
Thanks, Ed. Alrighty. So, hello everyone. It's a real pleasure to get the chance to chat to you today on how technology, but in particular how intelligence and automation can help you navigate through this new reality of distributed working and blended workspaces. With all our Australian states now in these different phases of the COVID journey, and our sympathy is with our Victorian colleagues, across the country we're seeing these three key workspaces emerging. At home, as many people are working from home, and this is no longer remote working, but just working. On the go, so when you are out and moving between your key workspaces, and the office, as some people will need to and some people will want to return to the office. Now, for most organisations, working from home will become permanent for some individuals and will be a key part of flexible working for most others. So we've been heavily focusing on continually enhancing our secure virtual work experiences. And we've got many things like enhanced in-meeting controls and new video layouts, which will be available in the next few months. And we've also been working really closely with our networking and security teams to enhance our secure and resilient remote working architecture. And you'll see lots coming out of Cisco for this in the coming months. Now, for those that want to and need to get back into the office space will most likely not be the same. The actual space itself and how people use it is evolving, and it's evolving really quickly. So the office will not necessarily be a place you go to for just working, but where you go to for a reason. So an important meeting, an event, or to use facilities you just don't have at home, or for those challenging interactions that are just better done in person, and for things like social activities. Now, this means that we will need to step back and rethink how people are using the office. Across Australia in the last 5+ years, we've seen this rapid evolution of the workplace, with the majority of organisations undertaking some form of workplace transformation. Now, we've seen these amazing new and refurbed office environments that were all aligned to agile and activity-based working. But with these new and changed demands on the workplace, intelligence and automation will be key. And this will build on all the work you've done to get to flexible workspaces. And it's the reason I believe intelligent workspaces will be the next evolution of workplace transformation. Now, when we think about returning back to the office, everybody's interested in those wellness strategies, and you'll be considering or already implementing wellness and risk mitigation strategies. And we're seeing lots of different strategies like separating teams, staggered work days and work hours, and setting these space density and room maximums to adhere to those social distancing guidelines. Now, this will have people and space implications, as we won't be able to interact in the office exactly like we did before. We won't be able to have lots of people gathered closely together, and we won't be able to have these overcrowded meeting rooms that you see here. We will need to separate teams and put limits on rooms to minimise those potential impacts. And we're going to need to adhere to those social and physical distancing guidelines for probably quite a while yet. Now, this is where technology, and in particular intelligent technology, can really help. With team separation, this is going to require blended meetings, as not all people will be in the office at the same time. Many organisations like us at Cisco have already split their teams into red and blue teams or A and B teams with staggered days and times that they'll be in the office. So nearly every meeting will need to be set up as a blended virtual meeting, as meetings will include people working from home, some people working from different workspaces and office meeting spaces. And in order for these meetings to be productive, all participants, no matter where they are, need to be included and active participants, not remote passengers. So they need to be engaged via video. They need to be actively involved, and they need to be able to seamlessly collaborate and create and co-create and share. And we've seen this huge increase in video usage in the past few months. And it's actually been really encouraging to see how people have been embracing video. So video enablement will also become really crucial. Now the question then becomes, how can we enable our knowledge workers to feel safe and be safe in returning to the office? Now, really interestingly, up until prior to the pandemic, the AI innovations that we were building and acquiring in the last few years in those areas like machine learning and natural language understanding, computer vision, speech and facial detection and recognition, things like enterprise digital assistants and bots, these were mostly being applied to secure collaboration and, as you see here, enhancing user experiences. But in this current climate and with the new distributed working reality, we're actually seeing these technology innovations being applied and becoming relevant in many new and different ways, such as using these cognitive interfaces and cognitive interactions so people can feel comfortable going back to the office. So enabling things like social distancing adherence and providing contactless and touch-free integrations. People will be touch adverse for quite a while yet. And so providing contactless interaction options will actually be very, very appealing. And we can enable ways that they can have touch-free collaboration interactions using their own device or just their voice through things like our intelligent proximity and the WebEx Assistant. Now, intelligent proximity is one of our cool little ingenious innovations that was originally created years ago to solve that horrible dongle sharing problem by providing a solution for wireless sharing. But it's also become a way that we can determine if a room is in use, so actual room presence, but also a great way to control and interact in meetings by instantly pairing to a person's own device. So with intelligent proximity, as soon as someone walks into a room, the device will instantly pair to the WebEx endpoint. And so they can use their own device, their own desktop, their mobile or tablet to control the endpoint, but also all their calls, their meetings, and do all of their content sharing. And they could even start a call or meeting here on their own device and then seamlessly switch it from their device to the meeting space without touching any of those common elements in the room. But we've also enhanced it so guests to your organisation could actually use a web browser on their device to connect and share, and giving them that comfort of using their own device as well. The WebEx Assistant can provide voice-activated contactless interactions in rooms and in meetings. And with the WebEx Assistant, it's a conversational AI that will allow your people to interact using their voice and natural language to speak and control not only the meetings, but also the endpoint and the room environment. So I could just say, okay, WebEx mute. And what's really great is we can extend the WebEx Assistant via Skills APIs to include your own customer-specific intents. So somebody in your organisation could say, okay, WebEx, what's the current stock level of product X? And so this will allow you to widen those contactless interactions even further. Now, we're all doing lots and lots of meetings. In fact, we're actually doing more meetings because all those coffee shop and hallway chats have now become virtual meetings. So AI and the WebEx In-Meetings Assistant can help make our meetings a little bit more constructive. Especially when we have those back-to-back meetings, we can actually peek in and see who's already joined our next meeting. And so we can make an informed decision of when we jump from one meeting to another. Now, during our meetings, the meetings assistant can create automated highlights and summaries. So you can actually focus on the meeting and not on manually writing down notes. Once it's enabled, the meetings assistant will automatically start capturing these meetings highlights and action items and notes and decision points. And it actually does this through the AI listening for key trigger phrases, like take an action, remember that, the next step is, and you'll get this detailed meeting summary automatically created. As we will need to use our office space a little bit differently, I think it's actually important to understand our WebEx devices with all the cognitive capabilities are not just video endpoints, but they're in fact AI-enabled intelligent workplace devices. So what they can do is they can turn your meeting rooms into intelligent spaces. Now, these AI devices actually include sophisticated sensors, and this endpoint sensor technology is continually being expanded. So today, all of the WebEx room systems and devices can sense and detect things like room presence and people count and noise detection and sound levels and any ambient noise. And the newer devices like the Desk Pros, and we've got some new navigator panels that will be available in the next few months, have even further advanced sensor capabilities. So they can also sense temperature, humidity, and ambient light. And you'll be able to retrofit these new panels to the current video devices. And what's great is they'll be able to use inside and outside the room. Now, this sensor technology was primarily being used for workplace occupancy analytics. But what we're seeing with these new use cases emerging is it being used for things like social distancing adherence, room presence visibility, room reservations, and integration with things like location analytics. So in our meeting rooms, those social distancing guidelines will require some new room maximums. So a room that catered for 4 people may now have a maximum of 2. So our intelligent facial and head detection for people count is actually getting some huge interest, as the WebEx endpoint will detect as soon as someone walks in the room, and it can activate the people count. So you'll actually know in real time how many people are in the room. And it does this passively, which means those people don't even need to use the meeting room device for video or for sharing. They can just be physically in the room and it will still detect and count them. So here on this image, you can see that the maximum has been set to 2, but on that self view at the bottom, you can see that there's actually 3 people in the room. So straight away, a notification is sent to the endpoint and the panel, but it could also trigger alerts to other systems to notify of any of those social distancing breaches. Now, given these new occupancy limits on our meeting rooms, you will need to maybe change the way that you're managing meeting rooms. So moving beyond just that traditional process of booking meeting rooms by calendar. Room maximums will potentially mean that the same meeting may span multiple meeting spaces. So a meeting where there's 10 people in the office may now need to use 3 rooms. 4 people in 1 room and 3 people in 2 other rooms. So we can't, and we really can't have this, continue to have just one-dimensional calendar booking for managing our meeting rooms, because we can't have that situation where 3 rooms are booked and then they're not used. So we're already starting to see a big shift to on-demand usage of space. But this is actually tough without technology to help. So we can enable an ad hoc intelligent space reservation capability to reserve actual space when people are actually in the room. So creating a just-in-time space reservation model. But it's not just on demand. So this intelligent reservation model can complement your calendar scheduling, as you'll most likely need to find this balance between your on-demand and scheduled spaces. So your people can walk in and reserve the room on demand using their voice, or reserve via the control panel inside or outside the room. And they'll even get a notification when the meeting end time is approaching. And if the room is free, the assistant will prompt and ask if they want to extend the room, and they can extend that reservation using just their voice or on the control panel. The endpoint ultrasound motion technology knows as soon as someone walks in the room. So it knows that the room is actually in use, even if that person has no devices on them. So if I just walk into a meeting room and sit down, it knows that someone's in the room and we can automatically reserve the room. Now, you can use APIs to access this room presence visibility. And so you could enable use cases like determining when people have finished their meeting, they've left the room, and you could then send in the cleaners to wipe down any of those common surfaces. And we're also working on capabilities like intelligent room release, which will automatically release a reserved room when the room is booked, but room presence shows there's nobody actually in there. Now, this becomes even more useful when integrated with things like location analytics. So we could enable intelligent ad hoc room finding. So instead of wandering around the floor and trying to find an available space, the location analytics will know where you are, and it will know what collaboration spaces are available near where you are, and then integrated with a map solution could provide wayfinding to that nearest available space. Now, this could be made even more social distancing specific. So I've got customers who are now implementing one-directional corridors in their offices. So the wayfinding could be implemented with one-way paths across the floors, and you could provide visibility not just of space available, but the maximum number of people that could be in those spaces. Now, where to next? Right, we've really only started our AI journey in the past few years, and there's lots of interesting areas that we're exploring. If you think about it, the quickest and most natural interactions we have is when we speak, we're listened to, we're understood, we're acknowledged, and we get a response or our ask is acted upon. Now, the AI technologies can be enabled to hear all of the speech and audio and noise and see all of the visuals in the room and in meetings, including the physical environment, and it could then analyze this to perceive the intent and the context and respond accordingly. So here are some of the interesting areas and ideas that we're investigating, like speaker identification. As not all people, unfortunately, are joining our blended virtual meetings via video. So we could use speaker imprint identification to recognize individual speakers. So when I'm joined on audio and I say, I will do that, assign the action to me. We could start using tone and sentiment recognition. So something that we've used in contact centers for a while to identify those angry and frustrated callers, we could use in our blended meetings to try and work out the tone of the meeting. With computer vision, we'll start enabling things like gesture recognition. So I could do a thumbs up or nod my head to extend the meeting room reservation. And with object recognition and couple that with things like room and space interpretation, we could identify that glasses and plates that are left in an empty meeting room and interpret that the room is dirty, so notify the cleaners. Or identify that there's now too many chairs in the room for safe social distancing, so alert to have those additional chairs removed. Relationship could use just metadata to learn your communication habits. So start to understand what is important to you as an individual and help you from a personal productivity perspective. So this AI-assisted prioritizations could learn things like, who do you always check messages from first? Which team spaces are most important to you? Which do you always check? Understand, what's your team hierarchy? Who are the key people that you constantly connect with? Who do you respond to the quickest? And which types of meetings do you never miss? And importantly, what meetings and messages do you ignore? So surface just what's important to you. Now, we could also provide enhanced meeting briefings. So using a familiarity index to determine if you've never met with somebody before, provide not just background info, but do you have any common intersections? Do you know and interact with the same people? Have you worked at the same place in the past? Did you go to the same school or uni? Now, probably my favorite is we could have a digital delegate. that attends meetings on our behalf when we're double booked, and I always have 3 a.m. calls. Our digital delegate could then give us a personalised summary with highlights and action items catered for you, and I tell you, I definitely need one. Now, importantly, as we provide a secure but open platform, we can tightly integrate all of our collaboration capabilities into all the different apps and clients that your people use. So I just want to finish with a little glimpse of what my day might look like in the future. So I could get a detailed personalised briefing to start my day off, and details of a key meeting. I could get that personalised summary and action items from that 3 a.m. meeting that I did miss. It could pop those messages that are most important to me, like one from my manager or from a key customer. As I join my meetings, it can let me know who's accepted and who's declined, but importantly, who's already in the meeting, and do I have any commonalities with the people that I don't know, like we worked at the same place previously. If I'm in the office, as I walk into a room, proactively ask me to join in the meeting and reserve the room as soon as I sit down. And I can instantly see names and details for any faces that I don't recognise. During the meeting, I could actually use gestures to interact, and I could use a swipe to move forward on my slides instead of using a clicker. And I could use do a thumbs up when prompted if I want to extend my meeting reservation. And in the background, the in-meeting assistant will automatically be taking detailed notes and action items and any decision points. So after the meeting, I'd automatically get this detailed summary with all the highlights and action items, and then the assistant could help me with follow-up in the next meeting. So really starting to automate some of those routine productivity-sucking tasks that we do every day. Now, it's some pretty cool and exciting stuff, and it's rapidly being enhanced and expanded. We just announced another acquisition of ModCam, a computer vision and AI video analytics company, this week. So the good news here is all of these future use cases will be enabled via the WebEx platform and devices. So you can actually start using the intelligence that we already have today and then leverage these new use cases and capabilities when they become available in the future.